Thank you for getting up early and joining us for this webinar today. This presentation will also be recorded, so if for any reason folks weren't able to attend or if you have to leave early, we will be sending out a link to the recorded version as well. When participants enter the webinar, they will be muted, but if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box as we go through the presentation, and I'll try to address those as we go along. This webinar is targeted for farms in Western North Carolina and the Southern Appalachians, but we do have folks joining us from across the country today. So I hope that while some of these resources won't be applicable to you, hopefully there will be some take-home tools and strategies that will be helpful for you and your farm. And this workshop is funded as part of a project through RMA, which is the USDA Risk Management Agency. So we appreciate their support in bringing you this training. So for those of you who aren't familiar with ASAP, we are a regional nonprofit that's based in Asheville, North Carolina, but we serve the Southern Appalachian Mountains. Our mission is to help local farms thrive, link farms to markets and supporters, and to build healthy communities through connections with local food. And if you want to learn more about our organization or see other resources and tools we have, please feel free to visit our website, which is asapconnections.org. So within ASAP, there are three specific programs. I'm the program director for ASAP's local food campaign, and the goal of our local food campaign is really to build the critical mass of individuals and businesses and institutions that are eager to purchase local food, and we inform people about the value of local food and farms, directing them to local products and businesses that use them. And so we are identifying foods in the marketplace for consumers, and we do that through marketing and organizing and different publications. So we have a printed and online local food guide that we have been publishing for over 10 years now. We have an annual Business of Farming conference that really helps build the capacity of farms to serve local markets. And then we have a lot of consumer engagement opportunities as well, like our farm tour that happens every year in September, and other events like a CSA fair to help consumers learn more ways that they can connect with area farms. We also have a Growing Minds Farm to School program, and this program is really focused on health and wellness programming and creating that link between health and local agriculture. So how do we create healthy food environments and experiences that will really help better the health of our community as a whole? And some of the ways we accomplish this is through trying to source more local food for school cafeterias, farm field trips, school gardens, local food cooking classes, and really doing that not directly one-on-one with each individual school, but more focused on teacher training and resources for folks to be able to implement that in their own schools. We also have a local food research center, and this is a really critical piece of our organization and drives a lot of our local food campaign work as well as our Growing Minds programs. And the local food research center works on assessing the economic, social, and environmental impacts of food system localization, and does that through applied system-based collaborative research. And again, this is some of the research to really assess where are we at with local food sales and those opportunities for farmers to tap into. So with our mission to really help family farms thrive, we do that through local food. And there are many reasons why you want to develop your local food system and why people purchase local food. And those can be everything from folks that want to protect area farmland to support the economic development of their communities. But today there are opportunities to build strong and sustainable local food systems, but how that works and what those strategies are enlisted are really dependent on kind of where you are and where your community is at. Part of this local food system work is providing diverse market opportunities for farmers, and that's really what the webinar today is going to be focused on. But I want to give you a little bit of context for what is the market environment here in Western North Carolina. I had mentioned earlier we have a local food guide, and this graph just shows over the last 10 years the growth in the listings that are in that guide. So back in 2005, we had 166 farms listed as part of our online local food guide, and in 2015, we have almost 700. So as consumer demand for local really increases, those farms and businesses in our region are really stepping up to meet that demand. So to give you a little context again, Western North Carolina, while we only have 11% of the population and the farmland in the state, we have over a fifth of the farms. And so farms in our region, in the Southern Appalachian region in general, are smaller, and this lends itself to different types of marketing strategies and opportunities as well. Looking at some of the data from the 2012 Census of Agriculture, our Local Food Research Center found that local food sales direct to consumers and to retail stores in our region was significantly higher than the national average and the state as a whole. And so we saw almost a 70% increase in direct sales from 2007 to 2012. So again, the local food movement and the market opportunity for local in our region is very unique and also growing. So for those of you who aren't in Western North Carolina, there is hope that it is a national trend. The market for local food is not just unique to here in Western North Carolina. You can see that the top two trends here and what's hot for the culinary forecast in 2015 are around local food. And it's not just the wealthy folks that are purchasing this local. If you look at this graph, this is from a national survey, and it shows that even senior citizens and low-income families are willing to pay more for local, and that it's more than just economics that are driving folks' food choices. And it's predicted that local food sales will continue to rise. And so, given this context, this trend of people and consumers really wanting local food and wanting to use their food dollars to support area farms, ASAP has really worked to take that trend and combine it with what are the supportive environments that we can help create so that farmers and businesses and communities can innovate and really begin to not just survive but also prosper. So again, a lot of our work is focused on assessing what is the context for local food sales in our community, our food system, helping direct demand for consumers to be able to find local food and to connect with those reasons of why they want to purchase. And then it's also about building capacity of farmers to meet those demands. And that's whether you're serving directly to the consumer, and it's also learning more about the different market opportunities and the requirements to sell to those markets. And then a lot of my work specifically is around making connections as well. And that can be, again, everything from introducing a consumer of where they can go and find you-pick blueberries to making a connection between a farmer that wants to sell to a grocery store. So we do a lot of those introductions for farmers here in our region as well. So this webinar, again, we want to figure out how can we diversify our market opportunities and really tap into that demand for local product. I mentioned earlier that this webinar is part of a series with funding provided by the Risk Management Agency. And so when we're talking about risk for farms, a lot of farmers think of production risks. What are the crop failures going to look like this year? What's drought going to look like? What's going to happen if I'm really hit hard by an insect infestation? And those are production risks, and a significant risk when you're looking at farming and your sales for an upcoming year. But also stepping back and thinking about other risks for your farm. Those can be everything from marketing, financial, legal, and human resource risks as well. And so you all probably are familiar with the term not putting all of your eggs in one basket, and that can refer to not growing one product, but also not relying on only one market. So to manage risk and reduce risk for farmers, we work with folks on planning, and being a part of this webinar today and learning about different options is one way that you're managing risk for your farm. Diversification is another way to manage that risk, and that can be both product diversification. What is a good mix of crops that are going to give me a variety of different sales opportunities, but also what are the different ways we can diversify our markets and where we're selling those products. So making sure that if we have a fabulous relationship with a particular restaurant, if we're selling all of our product there and that restaurant happens to go under, that's a huge risk to our farm that we're completely tied to that one opportunity. So how can we branch out and really have a combination of things to give yourself a strong business model? And when we're talking about diversification and managing risk, I think that Danny McConnell is a farmer here in Henderson County, and I think that his story is pretty classic for farms in our region, that 20 years ago, their farm was growing one product and selling it to one customer. So he was an apple farmer and, looking at what is the wholesale apple market and that one juice processor in the region. But this last year, Danny sold products to over 3,000 customers in direct markets. And he also has multiple wholesale buyers and more than 25 different produce items that he's now selling. He's also added jams and jellies and ice cream to the mix. So again, one of the quotes from Danny is that if you don't adapt, you don't survive. And again, thinking about how is it that we can plan for a successful farm. It's what do we grow well and where can we sell it, and that combination, but also really thinking about the diversity and how that's going to contribute to the sustainability of your operation. So when you're thinking about marketing options for your farms, it's important to know a little bit about yourself as an individual and as a farmer, a producer, and also the team of folks that you have working with your farm. So knowing what are your strengths and weaknesses, and also being able to recognize those opportunities and potential threats in your planning. So if you are a very outgoing person that really likes engaging with your customer and telling your farm story, maybe direct markets are a really good option for you. But maybe you really want to focus your energy on growing really good quality product and high volumes of it, and you don't really like talking to people, maybe wholesale opportunities might be a better match for you. But also thinking about your planning, thinking about your entire team. Maybe your spouse or some of your farm partner is really good at something you're not, and how can you balance those skills and abilities to really make sure that you have a good mix of skills going into planning for where you're going to be selling. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about different market opportunities here, and this is a great place to chime in if you have particular questions about a market. Talking a little bit about the pros and cons of selling to these different markets, and again, this is a 1-hour webinar. We could do a whole day conference about marketing your product and building relationships with customers. So this is, again, an overview of the different market opportunities and just some things for you to consider. If you're wondering, oh, if I want to sell to chefs, is that going to be a good match for your business? And what is the price points to expect? And how do I really put that plan into action? So direct market opportunities. When I talk about direct markets, I'm talking about farmers markets, CSAs, roadside stands. Again, you're selling directly to a consumer, not necessarily to a third-party buyer or retailer. And for those of you who may be selling at a farmer's market, you know that you're going to get a higher price than you will wholesale. You're going to have higher prices. You're going to have that direct relationship with the consumers, so they're going to be able to greet you on Saturday morning and know you and your story and your products, and you can tell them, oh, come in next week. I'm going to have these beautiful tomatoes that aren't quite ripe, but I'm going to have them fresh and ready for you next week. So again, that relationship and that one direct one-on-one relationship is a really powerful marketing tool. And it's an easy point of entry for small producers. Maybe you're still figuring out your production. Maybe you're experimenting with some different crops. You can show up with irregular sizes and various volumes, and that's not going to affect your sales dramatically. But so that said, it also can be a highly competitive environment. Here in Buncombe County, where Asheville is, there are 14 different farmers markets, and so a lot of new and beginning farmers are trying to enter into these direct markets, and it sometimes can be very competitive as well. So those are some of the benefits of those markets, but at the same time, thinking about how much time you're going to be putting into not just the production and harvesting and planning, but also sitting out there at market. And a lot of folks don't factor in their time when they're looking at the profitability of a particular market. So although that a lot of times when you're thinking about marketing your product, you're either going to be putting in time or money. And so are you going to be sitting there and spending your time and building those relationships as a marketing tool, or are you going to be paying for labels or other promotions that to help market your product? So those are a few of the considerations when you're looking at direct market opportunities. Does anybody have any questions about direct markets offhand before I keep going? Feel free to chime in that chat box if you do. So entering into the wholesale environment, there are benefits to wholesale. I think a lot of folks see it as lower prices, and that's absolutely true, but it's also somewhere to turn with your surplus. You may have a great crop and you can't move that all at your farm stand or through your CSA or at a farmer's market. So being able to have some opportunities to sell that surplus, that's a good example where wholesale markets may be a really nice complement to your direct markets. So again, thinking about your farm business as not one or the other necessarily, but how can we combine these market opportunities to help you manage your risk so you don't have a lot of product go to waste. There's a convenience and efficiency to be able to sell a large volume to one customer. So that's something for those types of folks that know I don't really want to be spending all week trying to sell the product that I grew that week. I want to be able to have a one-stop drop where I drop off my product and are done with it. So cross-promotional opportunities are another interesting benefit to thinking about wholesale markets. This is an example of a farmer profile that's hanging up at a local grocery store here in our region for John Mitchell. In addition to selling to that grocery store, he also has a U-Pick operation at his farm stand. So by promoting his product in the grocery store, he's also cross-promoting his farm stand and his U-Pick as well, and vice versa. At the farm store, he can say, you know, when you can't get out to the farm, go and check out and look for my products over at Harold's. So again, thinking about these markets, not in silos, but how they can cross promote and benefit you and your farm business. So restaurants are an interesting market opportunity, and again, will be very varied depending on where you are and what kind of food scene you have, what kind of restaurant combinations. Here in Asheville, there's an amazing amount of restaurants, and people come to this region wanting to find food from this region, wanting to have that farm-to-table experience at restaurants, and so we have a high demand for local products in area restaurants. But it can be highly variable as well. while it's usually closer to a retail price point than other wholesale markets, the quantities and the frequency of when they need deliveries will also be really variable. There's some real small restaurants that want somebody to deliver every couple days. There's real large restaurants that are going to be moving a really large volume at a pretty good price. So again, looking at the market opportunities in your particular community and trying to build those relationships to determine what kind of volumes is this restaurant going to be moving through, what kind of price point are they willing to pay, and how can I start building a relationship with those buyers to be able to have some negotiation within there. One example here in Asheville, a farm, Ivy Creek Farm, was able to build a really good relationship with one of the chefs at the Grove Park Inn. And although he wasn't able to pay them what they initially had wanted for their greens, he was able to negotiate and say, you know, while I can't give you this for your greens, I can pay you more for your turnips. And again, it's building that kind of relationship and having that discussion with your buyer to be able to balance it out and make sure you're getting what you need for your products across the board. The grocery market, again, can be really variable depending on where you live and what that consumer demand is. Here in our region, the consumer demand for local is everywhere from the restaurants to the grocery stores. Groceries are constantly being asked what's local, and ASAP, part of our work is to help identify that at the retail level so that consumers can see a product and know that in buying that they are buying a authentically local product for our region. But again, these are typically grocery stores will be taking larger volumes of product, but that can also be variable. So if you want to experiment with selling to a grocery market, maybe starting with a one-store independently owned grocer like an IGA might be a good option to try how that works for your operation, and then moving up to retail chains. Figuring out what is the system for buying for those chains. It may be that you're able to sell to a cluster of stores rather than having to supply the whole warehouse. So again, talking to those buyers and seeing what their needs are and then trying to figure out how that'll balance with your farm. And again, ask questions and put different scenarios to folks where there may be more flexibility in that system than you may initially realize. It might be that, oh, we want you, if you're going to sell to this regional chain, you have to supply our warehouse and our 200 stores. Well, in talking more specifically to that buyer, you might say, well, I can't realistically give you quality and consistent quantities to meet all those stores, but how about we start with servicing 5 of these stores clustered in my community, and I can deliver direct to the stores, and we can see how that relationship goes and build from there. So again, trying to figure out what realistically you can do, not overcommitting to, we all have good intentions that we want to build a good relationship with the buyer and be able to give them what they want, but at the same time, it's going to be much more powerful for you to be more realistic about what you can provide and tell them what you can offer, rather than trying to meet a demand that you can't fully fulfill. So again, there's going to be different requirements depending on the grocery. Typically selling to grocery markets, you're going to need a level of liability insurance for your product. As well as there may be food safety requirements, and that can be anything from a food safety plan up to GAP certification requirements. And most of the groceries are going to require a more standardized sizing of your product and packaging, and communicating with that buyer again about what they need and in what kind of packaging, and to be able to really serve that market is an important line of communication. Distributors, wholesalers, brokers, packers, there's a lot of different terms and different variations of what this can look like. Again, you're going to be moving a lot more volume. It's going to be a more convenient one-stop shop, but as you sell to distributors and more of this wholesaler market, you're going to get more of the high volume, lower cost than you will in more of the direct markets. But again, there's that convenience of you not having to spend all day in your truck driving around. So think about your mileage and your time when you're looking at different market opportunities. Institutions, this can include colleges and universities, hospitals, school systems. These are going to be your highest volume market, but also your low price point. So again, depending on your farm and your operation, it might be a really good match. If you can do a high volume of a few products that they're looking for, you might be able to make that low price point still be a good market opportunity for your farm. There is a lot of different levels of purchasing requirements, and so learning these food systems and how they work is an important piece of doing that. And if you're interested in selling to institutions in our region, I'd be happy to talk to you more about what kind of requirements and processes you may need to go through. There's often, you may need to sell through an established vendor or distributor, and you might need to go through a bid process. And some of those bid processes can really vary from school to school or district to district. And that might be a bid for the week, and it might be the bid for the entire year. So again, that can be really variable depending on where you're located and the different system that you're dealing with. So a lot of times, again, people are thinking about what product should I go and where am I going to get the best price for those. So thinking about your operation, what kind of volumes you can realistically produce and what price you need to be able to get. Crunching those numbers is a really important piece of planning and trying to figure out what your best balance for market opportunities is. This kind of gives you a general sense of the percentages of the retail price that different wholesale markets will offer. Again, restaurants, you're going to get a higher percentage of that retail price, but a lot of times lower volumes than something on the other end of the spectrum, like a distributor or an institution, that you'll get you may get less than half the price, but at the same time, you're able to move a much greater volume. So thinking about different wholesale markets, think about what kind of product liability insurance you want to carry and can carry, what kind of certifications. If you're looking at markets like institutions, pursuing your organic certification might not necessarily help you get a better price point, but yet if you're looking at grocery markets, that might be something to consider. So what kind of certifications are you interested in getting, or if you're selling into particular markets, what kind of certifications are they going to require? There may be multiple vendor application processes that you have to go through. And again, figuring out how much you want to commit to that market opportunity before going through all these steps. So knowing kind of what's required and what price points you're going to need to be able to get for your product and can get is going to help you determine if that market is a good match for your farm. Invoicing, whether you're going to be selling to a restaurant or to a grocery store, being professional and having something as standardized as a receipt booklet and being able to provide invoices is going to be really critical. So making sure you're computer savvy enough to be able to communicate with folks on their communication style and figuring out what that is. And that's going to really vary depending on the buyer as well. There's some chefs that I'm working with now that don't want you to email your product availability. They want it by text. And so they won't even look at it if it is coming in through email. So again, being able to access that opportunity is knowing the best way to communicate with those buyers. So consider a weekly price sheet or availability list, something that's kind of mimicking what a distributor might put out or what their other suppliers may put out. But it's, again, a reminder to folks that even if they didn't purchase last week, hey, this is what I have for this week, and this is what kind of the pricing and the availability is a really important reminder to keep in the loop with area buyers. Thinking about delivery times, what is convenient for you may or may not work for those buyers. So really figuring out how those logistics are going to be working. If you're going to need refrigeration, what kind of post-harvest handling you're going to really need to think about. If you're selling at a farmer's market, getting the field heat out of that winter squash isn't going to be as critical as it is if you're going to be selling into a grocery market where your squash is going to turn to mush if you don't have the correct cooling for that particular product. So again, thinking about what kind of post handling you're going to need to invest in if you're selling into different market opportunities. And again, packaging is going to really vary. A chef may be willing to take a bushel basket of a product, but if you're going to be selling through a grocery, you may need to invest in some more, a nice label, a PLU sticker, a clamshell, depending on what those requirements are for packaging. And then your pricing, again, depending on where you're going to be selling, is really going to influence what product pricing you're going to get for your product. In thinking about packaging, there's a lot of really good resources out there that can tell you, what standard packaging looks like. I'll talk a little bit more later in the presentation about some of the resources for farms in our region here in the Southern Appalachians if you're looking at packaging. But again, talk to your customer and ask to see examples. If they say, we want a clamshell, ask for examples of the type of clamshells that they are looking for and tracing down where you can get that product. Local food sales are as much about relationship building as anything. And try to remember when you're communicating with folks, whether that be directly with your consumers or with your buyers, why they're buying local. And so part of that is making sure that people aren't just buying local because it's the right thing to do, but also because they're getting a really good quality product, they're really getting customer service, and there's a really good lines of communications. So being persistent and asking for feedback on your product, on your customer service, on your delivery, and also being responsible with the follow-through. If you don't have the product, let them know that so that they're not caught scrambling for something at the last minute. So you're going to be building these relationships with your customers. And also on a local scale, that word of mouth on your professionalism and your quality of product is really going to travel through area buyers. So if you have a really good relationship and offer quality product at a consistent basis to one chef, the word is going to spread there. And unfortunately, a negative experience with a farm is going to travel even faster primarily than a positive one. So you want to be leaving good impressions on your buyers, that if you don't have something, you at least communicate that with them. And I talk to buyers a lot that say, oh, well, I really want to purchase local, and I call these farmers and they never call me back. Even if you don't have what they're looking for, that's an opportunity to engage them in what you do have and help, be able to sell another type of product. There's going to be other market factors that are going to affect your pricing as well as the market opportunities. And that can be everything from seasonal trends to, what is the specialty crops versus commodity. But when you're looking at pricing your product, there are some different resources to give you context for what's a realistic price point to expect. And there's a few resources here, but again, talking to area distributors, talking with chefs as you're building those relationships, trying to get a sense of what is a realistic price to be able to put on your product, but then also crunching the numbers to know what you need to be getting out of it to make that be a profitable product for you. So that cost of production and record keeping, I can't reiterate how important that is. And I get folks who are calling and saying, how much should I sell my strawberries for? And that first question is, well, how much is gone into that? What do you need to get? The amount of your cost of production is going to be unique to your operation. So while another farm down the road may be selling their strawberries for $3 a pint, what do you need to be able to be getting for that? And it might be that you crunch the numbers and you're selling your broccoli for a loss. But at the same time, having that broccoli at your farmer's market booth is what really brings in other customers in order to buy your tomatoes that you make a profit on. So that's an example of a loss leader, but knowing whether you're losing or breaking even or making on a profit on a lot of these products is really critical, and you can then plan accordingly. So again, even if you don't get your optimal price, knowing how much and what percentage of a loss you're taking at certain volumes is going to be really important for your planning. And put your time in there as well. Again, a lot of folks say, okay, I've put in, the cost of my amendments and my irrigation and my packaging, but how much time do you spend on a regular basis? So that's the important piece of record keeping, not just your expenses, but also your time. So one thing, when you're talking to area buyers about the price point they're getting, it could very well be that the national market for cucumbers is $2 a case. But at the same time, remembering that if you can brand and identify your product as local, that's adding value to the product in the marketplace. That consumers are coming into that grocery store asking what's local, looking for that, and willing to pay more for that. So again, what is the promotional value for the customer? What is it? How much can that grocery store mark up a local cucumber versus a cucumber from California? And so asking your buyers if they'd be willing to pay more than that national market price, that trying to really build on that local demand, that it's going to be a good marketing strategy for them to say they offer local product, as well as for you to be able to get a good price for your product. So again, if you can identify your product out as a local product, and that's going to make your product stand out in that marketplace and give you an advantage over any other product that's coming in from across the country. Local food is about telling that story and building those relationships, and this applies to retail or wholesale. Again, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, building on your farm team, and knowing where, if you're lacking on the records keeping skills, who can you bring in to help you to support that piece of your business? If you are not good at sending out that weekly availability sheet to all of your buyers, who on your team can you task with that piece? Knowing what are the critical pieces to be able to serve a diverse array of markets, and who are the people or the skills that you need to bring on board to help you make this a more sustainable business. Whether you're meeting with a chef, or whether you're going to a grocery store, or whether you're standing at a farmer's market, samples are great. You can talk about local all day and how there's a huge demand for local, but having that taste and having that quality product is going to also be a huge marketing piece. So offer samples. Even if a chef doesn't have time to go into every detail with you about your product, you maybe say, I don't want to interrupt your day. I'm going to leave you these samples in my card, and I'm going to call you tomorrow to see what you thought about these eggplant. But then if you say that, make sure that you call tomorrow and ask them about what they thought about that eggplant. So don't miss those opportunities as well. And again, typically it's not going to be that one narrow market opportunity that's going to make your farm business sustainable. Thinking about that diversity of market opportunities and how can they also be cross-promoting each other? Can you be promoting an on-farm dinner and your agritourism venture on your farm through the local restaurant that you sell to? Is there a way for you to tell people, well, if you can't find me at my farm stand, you can also find my product at these area groceries? So again, think about promoting your product, not just at one place you're selling it, but every place that you're selling it. If you're working with wholesale retailers, really figure out what they can do. It's to their benefit as well as yours to be able to label that product as local and highlight the story behind your farm. So what are some ways that you can highlight your farm at that point of purchase? Is that a label on your packaging? Is that signage in the store? Is that an event at the store where folks can meet the farmer? Thinking about that point of purchase and trying to differentiate your product in the marketplace for the consumers. So again, stepping back to risk management and how do I manage my risk when I'm marketing my product. Regional branding, identifying your product as local is really a way to differentiate yourself in that marketplace, and that is helping you manage risk for your farm. You're improving the probability you're going to make a sale if you're tapping into that consumer demand for a local product. For those of you in the Southern Appalachian region, we have a branding and certification program called Appalachian Grown, and this is really defined. This is defined as about 100 miles from Asheville, and you can see the map here. 100 miles from Asheville, but also in a mountain county. So when we were doing research into consumer demand for local and how people were defining local for our region, people identified more with mountain farms than they did with farms across the state. If you're familiar with the state of North Carolina, driving to the coast from the mountains is pretty much the same time you're going to take if you're driving all the way up through Ohio. So again, figuring out how your consumer is defining local and being able to relate that story. The Appalachian Grown brand is really defined to say, for our community right here in the mountains, if you see this logo or this brand, you know that this is authentically local, not how some big marketing firm is defining local, but right here in our community. So keeping those food dollars in the mountains, supporting small mountain farms. Consumers are really looking for something that's authentic, that they don't want local just as the buzzword because it's trendy. They want to know the story behind it, and they want to know that it has meaning for them. So again, being able to brand your product as local is really going to help differentiate your product when you're not there to talk directly to the consumer about your farm or the story behind their food. So as this is a free program for farmers in the Southern Appalachians, and again, retaining that value of local and not getting it lost in with those market products is really about labeling that product from the farm, so that even if a grocery store does not do a good job at labeling your product as local, you ensure that value stays with your product. So as part of our Appalachian Grown program, we offer a lot of branded materials for farms in our area. And so we try to not have those be necessarily extra, but packaging materials and promotional materials you're already using. So for example, we've got 5 different sizes of wax boxes that we offer that are branded with Appalachian Grown, so that as you are selling through a distributor to a restaurant, that chef at the end know that they can promote that product as a certified local product for their customers. The other benefit to this type of program is that we have about 700 farms that are currently Appalachian Grown certified, and we can pool the purchasing power of those farms to be able to offer these products in bulk. So for example, we ordered 2.5 tractor trailer loads of wax boxes this year. And we're able to offer those at a price to farmers that is a lot more affordable than if you can only buy them 100 at a time through a typical supplier. So again, wanting to have that brand on there to retain the value of local for your product, but also to be able to help maximize your limited funds for both packaging materials and marketing to be able to offer a good price for farmers. If you are interested in creating your own label, whether that be for a clamshell or a PLU sticker, if you need farm signage for your roadside stand or your farmer's market booth, ASAP currently has a cost share program available for farms who are in North Carolina within our Appalachian Grown region. So this is a great opportunity to take advantage of getting that certified local brand on your product, but also creating a customized material for your farm. So we have funding through the North Carolina Tobacco Trust Fund commission right now to offer this program, and it is limited through the end of this year as of right now. So if you're a farm in our region in Western North Carolina and want to take advantage of a cost share program, we can reimburse you up to 50% of the cost for most of these labels and signage. So please contact us if you're interested in that program. Again, some of this won't be as applicable if you are not in our Appalachian grown region, but for folks that are here, tools for finding buyers here in your community. Look at messaging at your area grocery store or at your restaurant. If folks are saying that they're featuring local, approach them about your products. So look for that messaging where you are shopping and dining so that you can tap into potential opportunities there. Following food trends is another important piece, and that can be, again, everything from CSAs to what restaurants are looking for to feature on their menus. We have a printed local food guide for consumers, as well as a online consumer guide and a wholesale guide for farmers and buyers. So if you go to appalachiangrown.org, there's a wholesale tab, and this is a directory of farms that want to sell products wholesale and buyers that are interested in buying local products. So this is a great tool for you to be able to go in and see who's interested in buying local tomatoes. So you can search by county, by state. Again, this is only for the Southern Appalachian region, but it gives you a little bit more information about what kind of volumes particular market is purchasing, what kind of requirements they have for selling to them, and who that contact person is. And if you need help navigating that system or want some more recommendations for narrowing down where to start with those buyers, I'm happy to work with farms in our region to help match them up with the right kind of markets for their particular operation. So connecting with ASAP and learning about what kind of services and materials we have for farms. And again, that's everything from helping making market connections to the cost share or packaging materials, or learning about our Appalachian Grown program, learning about our farm tour, ways that we can help you promote your farm. Again, we're a nonprofit, we're not a broker, we're not, we don't actually sell local product. We're really about making those connections for farmers in the community and people that want to connect with local food and farms. We do have a grower buyer meeting that's part of our annual Business of Farming conference, and that has been a really useful way for folks to sit down with area buyers and start that conversations, make those introductions. And this year we are going to have a couple more specialized events with those grower buyer meetings. So in addition to our February Business of Farming conference, we're also going to be having grower buyer meetings in the high country and in the far western part of the state later this year. So please stay tuned if you're interested in attending one of those grower buyer meetings. Make sure you're on our e-newsletter list or on our Appalachian Grown Farmer list so we can let you know about those opportunities. Part of our work is really driving that demand for local product, but we depend on farmers to identify their product and claim their products as local so consumers can really find those in the marketplace. So talk about your farm, tell your story, and really identify your product as local. Building those relationships is key to entering into any of these market options. So I'd like to open it up for questions now. I have, for those of you who are listening to this on a recording later, feel free to email me if you have questions, and that goes for anyone who's on the webinar today as well. If you'd rather email or call with particular questions, that's also an option. Well, thank you for your time, and I hope that this offered a good overview of some different market opportunities and some of the pros and cons to selling to different markets. Have a good rest of your day, and again, please feel free to contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.